The tang of charred wood and melted plastic clung to Fire Chief Laura Delgado's skin as she eased her department-issued command SUV into her driveway at 2:37 a.m. Her ears throbbed with the ghost of sirens, the roar of flames, and the desperate shouts of her crew during a 16-hour battle against a strip mall inferno that had nearly swallowed 2 firefighters in a collapsing roof. Her body ached, shoulders knotted from hauling hose lines, knees bruised from crawling through debris. She was running on a stale granola bar, 4 cups of bitter station coffee that tasted like motor oil, and the fierce, unshakable pride that every one of her team had made it out alive. The suburban street of Willow Creek, with its identical beige houses, manicured lawns, and solar-powered streetlights, felt like a foreign land compared to the chaos she'd left behind. Her home, a modest 2-story with peeling paint she hadn't had time to fix, was a sanctuary she rarely saw. Tonight, all she wanted was a shower, a slice of cold pizza, and 6 hours of uninterrupted sleep. Laura cut the engine, the silence deafening after hours of noise. Her command SUV, a black Ford Explorer with reflective red and white decals, a city seal on the doors, and a roof-mounted light bar, was her lifeline. It wasn't just a vehicle, it was a mobile command center, packed with encrypted radios, evacuation maps, hazmat protocols, and a tablet loaded with every building schematic in the county. For 5 years, it had sat in this driveway, its presence as steady as her own heartbeat. She reached for the door handle, her fingers stiff from gripping tools, but closed on nothing but cool night air. The SUV was gone, vanished. The concrete driveway gleamed under the moonlight, marred only by fresh tire marks, still slick with dew, curving toward the street. Her breath caught, a sharp hitch in her chest. Exhaustion clouded her mind, and for a fleeting moment, she wondered if she'd parked somewhere else in a sleep-deprived haze. Had she left it at the station? No, she remembered the drive home, the streetlights blurring past. Her pulse quickened, a familiar adrenaline spike kicking in. She scanned the street, empty, silent, the neighbors' houses dark except for a single porch light flickering 2 doors down. Then she saw it, a neon green notice taped to her front door, flapping like a taunt in the breeze. Her boots crunched on the gravel path as she strode forward, her turnout gear rustling, still heavy with soot and sweat. She ripped the paper free, her eyes narrowing as she read, "Your vehicle has been removed for violating Willow Creek HOA aesthetic guidelines. Non-compliant vehicles will be towed at owner's expense. Contact HOA enforcement at 555-0123. Laura's grip tightened, the paper crinkling under her calloused fingers. Her eyebrows shot up, smudging the ash caked on her forehead. This wasn't some beat-up pickup or a neighbor's RV. This was a federally designated emergency operations vehicle, registered with the state fire marshal, equipped with communication relays, medical kits, and citywide hazard data. It wasn't parked for show, it was parked for survival. And the HOA, with their obsession over matching mailboxes and banned lawn gnomes, had towed it because it didn't fit their pristine suburban fantasy. Her chest tightened, a slow burn of disbelief mingling with rage. She exhaled sharply, her breath a faint cloud in the chilly air, and walked back to the empty driveway, her boots leaving faint ash prints on the concrete. For 5 years, that SUV had been her anchor. It had guided her through a chemical spill that evacuated half the city, a wildfire that chewed through 200 acres, and a school bus crash that haunted her dreams. It was her office, her command post, her tether to the people she swore to protect. Now it was gone, hauled off like trash. The audacity of it churned in her gut. But beneath the anger was something colder, fear. Without that vehicle, she was a general without a war room, a surgeon without tools. Her mind raced, replaying the night's fire, the moment she'd ordered her crew to pull back as the roof groaned. The split-second decision that saved lives. What if the next call came now? What if lives depended on the equipment locked in that SUV? Across the street, a curtain twitched in Mrs. Larson's window. The nosy retiree who reported every untrimmed hedge. A garage door slammed shut 2 houses over. The sound sharp in the stillness. Laura's eyes narrowed, her instincts honed from years of reading chaotic scenes. Someone was watching. Then came the voice, smooth and smug, slicing through the quiet like a blade. About time someone cleaned up this eyesore. It purred from the sidewalk. Laura turned, her boots pivoting on the gravel, to see Meredith Vance, Willow Creek HOA president, standing under a streetlight. Her blonde bob was impossibly perfect. Her arms crossed over a tailored blazer. Her smile radiating triumph. That thing was dragging down property values. I handled it. You're welcome. Laura's jaw clenched, her teeth grinding so hard she felt a molar ache. Meredith wasn't just a neighbor, she was a force. A self-appointed queen who ruled Willow Creek with manicured precision and a knack for passive-aggressive emails. For 3 years, Laura had dodged her, ignoring fines for her overgrown shrubs or the unapproved doghouse she'd built for Rusty. But this was war. That thing, Laura said, each word deliberate, like she was briefing a rookie before a 5-alarm blaze, is a state-certified emergency command vehicle. Towing it isn't just illegal, it's reckless. It's dangerous. Her voice was low, steady, but it carried the weight of someone who'd stared down death and won. Meredith blinked, her smile unwavering, and gave a dismissive wave. Her bracelets jangling. Then park it somewhere we don't have to look at it while walking our dogs. It's not personal, Laura. It's about standards. The casual use of her name, like they were friends, made Laura's skin crawl. Before she could respond, her radio crackled to life. The sound sharp in the quiet night. Chief Delgado, 10 to 71 at Maple Grove High. Suspected electrical fire in the science wing. Multiple units responding. Need command on scene ASAP. Her stomach plummeted. Maple Grove High, 1.200 students. A sprawling campus with outdated wiring. And her command SUV. The nerve center for coordinating fire, police, and EMTs, was gone. She grabbed her backup handheld from her belt. But its range was limited. Its battery already blinking red. The laptop with floor plans. The beacon for syncing radios. The medical kits for mass casualties, all locked in the missing SUV. Laura's heart pounded, not from exhaustion now, but from dread. She sprinted to her personal car. A 15-year-old Civic with a cracked windshield and a temperamental starter. Her hands shook as she fumbled the keys. Her mind racing through worst-case scenarios, trapped kids, overwhelmed responders, a fire spreading unchecked. Meredith watched, lips pursed, oblivious to the chaos she'd unleashed. "You're overreacting," she called, her voice dripping with condescension. Laura ignored her, slamming the car door and peeling out of the driveway. The Civic's tires squealing. The green HOA notice lay crumpled on the passenger seat. A mocking reminder of the fight that was just beginning. Laura Delgado's Civic sputtered as she floored the gas, weaving through quiet suburban streets toward Maple Grove High. The radio on her belt crackled with fragmented updates. Engine 12 on scene, smoke in the science wing, possible entrapment. Her heart hammered, each beat a reminder of the command SUV's absence. Without it, she was blind, no access to real-time schematics. No centralized radio hub, no medical kits for mass casualties. The neon green HOA notice lay crumpled on the passenger seat. Its words burned into her mind, non-compliant vehicle. The audacity of Meredith Vance's smug dismissal, "You're overreacting," fueled her rage. But fear gnawed deeper. Maple Grove High housed 1.200 students. And though it was after hours, night staff and a late basketball practice meant people were inside. Every second lost could be the difference between rescue and tragedy. She screeched into the school lot, greeted by a chaotic tableau, fire engines flashing red and blue, hoses snaking across the pavement, and thick black smoke billowing from the science wing. Firefighters shouted over the roar of flames, their silhouettes darting through the haze. Laura leapt from the car, her handheld radio spitting static as she tried to sync with her crew. "Chief on scene," she barked. But the signal cut out, forcing her to sprint toward the command post, a folding table manned by her lieutenant. "Jamal Carter, status?" she demanded, her voice hoarse from smoke inhalation earlier that night. Jamal's face was grim, fires spreading fast, old wiring in the lab. "We've got a janitor unaccounted for. Last seen near the chemistry storeroom. Cops are evacuating the gym. But radios are spotty without the SUV's beacon." Laura's stomach twisted. The command SUV's radio relay could cut through interference, syncing all units. Without it, communication was a patchwork of shouts and garbled transmissions. She scanned the scene, her mind racing to compensate. "Get engine 15 to vent the roof," she ordered. "Tell hazmat to stage near the east exit. Chemicals could make this toxic." Jamal nodded, relaying orders through his own faltering radio. Laura's eyes darted to a rookie firefighter, Mia Torres, hovering near the table, her face pale under her helmet. Mia was 23, fresh from the academy, and idolized Laura but froze under pressure. "Torres, grab the spare maps from Engine 12's cab." Laura snapped. Mia hesitated, then bolted, her boots slipping on wet asphalt. As Laura directed crews, a muffled scream echoed from the building. Her head snapped toward the sound, her pulse spiking. The janitor. She grabbed a mask and started toward the entrance. But Jamal caught her arm. "Chief, you can't go in without backup. Wait for the primary team." She shook him off, her voice steel. "We don't have time." The absence of her SUV gnawed at her. Its tablet held the school's updated floor plans, showing the storeroom's new layout after a renovation. Without it, she'd be navigating blind. She plunged into the smoke, the heat hitting like a wall. Visibility was near zero, the air thick with acrid fumes. Her flashlight beam cut through the haze, revealing charred lockers and melted ceiling tiles. "Call out," she shouted, her voice muffled by the mask. A faint cough answered, guiding her to a locked storeroom door. Laura kicked it open, finding the janitor, a wiry man named Carl, slumped against a shelf, his face gray from smoke inhalation. "Stay with me," she said, hoisting him over her shoulder. The ceiling groaned, sparks raining down as she staggered back toward the exit. Her lungs burned, her legs screaming under the weight. She burst into the night air just as a section of the roof collapsed, sending a plume of embers skyward. EMTs rushed forward, taking Carl to an ambulance. Laura ripped off her mask, gasping, her eyes stinging with more than smoke. Carl would live, but the close call seared her with guilt. If she'd had the SUV schematics, she could have sent a team faster. If she'd had the radio hub, coordination wouldn't have been chaos. Back at the command post, Mia returned with the maps, her hands trembling. "I'm sorry I froze, Chief," she mumbled. Laura wanted to snap but saw the fear in Mia's eyes, fear of failing, of not measuring up. "You got the maps," Laura said, softening. "That's what matters. Stay sharp." Mia nodded, but doubt lingered in her posture. The fire was contained by 4 a.m. The science wing gutted but the rest of the school saved. No fatalities, but Carl's oxygen mask and a firefighter's sprained wrist were scars of the delay. Laura sat on the Civic's hood, the horizon gray with dawn. Exhaustion pressed on her like a physical weight. But her mind churned, Meredith's smug face. The towed SUV. The green notice. They weren't just an inconvenience. They were a betrayal of everything she stood for. Her anger crystallized. Cold and precise. This wasn't over. It was just the spark. The tow yard's chain-link gate rattled as Laura Delgado pulled up at 6:45 a.m. Her turnout gear still dusted with ash from the Maple Grove fire. Her eyes, bloodshot from smoke and sleeplessness, burned with purpose. She'd driven straight from the school, the Civic's engine protesting the whole way. The neon green HOA notice sat on the dashboard, its edges curling like a guilty confession. Her mind replayed the night's chaos, Carl's grey face, Mia's trembling hands, the radio static that nearly cost them everything. The command SUV's absence wasn't just a logistical blow, it was a wound. And Laura was here to reclaim her lifeline. The yard was a graveyard of rusting cars and cracked windshields, the air heavy with oil and dust. Laura strode to the office, her boots kicking up gravel. The manager, a lanky man named Eddie with a coffee-stained shirt and a lazy drawl, leaned on the counter, scrolling on his phone. Name, he muttered, not looking up. Chief Laura Delgado, she said, her voice cutting through the hum of a flickering fluorescent bulb. I'm here for my city vehicle. Eddie's head snapped up, his eyes widening as he took in her soot-streaked gear and gleaming badge. Ah, right, the fire truck thing. Follow me. He grabbed a clipboard and led her through rows of impounded vehicles, the morning sun glinting off dented hoods. In a far corner, surrounded by junkers, sat her command SUV. Its red and white decals were dulled by dust, the light bar unplugged and tossed in the backseat like trash. The radio antenna was bent at a sickly angle, and the driver's door bore a fresh scratch, long and deliberate. Worst of all, the dashboard was empty. The tablet, loaded with decades of emergency data, was gone. Laura's chest tightened, her fingers twitching as she pulled out her phone and started snapping photos, each click a silent vow. Who authorized this? She asked, her voice low but laced with steel. Eddie scratched his neck, glancing at the clipboard. Some HOA lady, Meredith Vance, called it an unauthorized vehicle. Said it was clogging up her neighborhood. We didn't know it was emergency gear. Laura's jaw clenched. Meredith knew. The SUV's decals, the city seal, the light bar, there was no mistaking its purpose. She stepped closer, inspecting the damage. The back hatch was ajar, and a medical kit had been opened, its contents scattered. This wasn't just a tow, she said, turning to Eddie. This was vandalism. Where's the tablet? Eddie shrugged, his unease growing. Wasn't there when we logged it. Maybe it fell out during the tow. Laura's eyes narrowed. Or someone took it. You'll need to write a statement. This is a legal issue now. Eddie nodded, muttering about paperwork, but Laura was already dialing her station, requesting a tech to sweep the SUV for tampering. As she waited, her mind churned. The missing tablet wasn't just a loss, it was a security breach. It held sensitive data, evacuation routes, hazmat storage sites, even hospital surge plans. If it was stolen, not misplaced, the implications were catastrophic. Her exhaustion gave way to a deeper fear. Had Meredith targeted her deliberately? The HOA president's smug "You're welcome" echoed in her head, laced with malice. Laura's fingers traced the SUV's scratched door, her resolve hardening. This wasn't about aesthetics. It was personal. A neighbor's voice broke her thoughts. Tim, the retired mechanic from 2 doors down, stood at the gate, his pickup idling. Heard what happened, Chief? He called, his weathered face grim. Meredith's been gunning for you since you ignored her shrub fine last year. Whole street's talking. Laura nodded, grateful but guarded. They're talking, but are they doing anything? Tim sighed. Most are too scared. She fined me for my work van. Threatened to lien my house. But you're not backing down. Are you? Laura met his gaze. Not a chance. Tim tipped his cap and drove off, his words lingering like smoke. The tech arrived, confirming the tablet was gone and the radio system needed recalibration. Laura filed a police report, her pen shaking with suppressed rage as she detailed the damage. Eddie handed over a tow receipt. And there it was, Meredith's signature, dated 2 days ago, with a note, "Remove before neighborhood tour." Premeditated. Laura's blood ran cold. Meredith hadn't just acted on a whim, she'd planned this. Knowing the SUV's role, the tow wasn't a mistake, it was a power play. Laura drove the SUV back to the station, her hands white-knuckled on the wheel. The fight was no longer about one vehicle. It was about a tyrant who thought she could bully a fire chief and get away with it. Laura's anger wasn't just fire now, it was a controlled burn, ready to consume everything in its path. Laura Delgado sat in the stark fluorescent glow of City Hall's legal office. Her turnout gear swapped for a pressed navy blazer, her badge still pinned to her chest like a shield. Across the desk, Priya Patel, the municipal attorney, skimmed the evidence Laura had laid out, the neon green HOA notice, tow yard photos, the damning tow receipt with Meredith Vance's signature. Priya's sharp eyes flicked up, her expression a mix of disbelief and grim resolve. They towed an active emergency vehicle without clearance, she said, tapping the receipt, and stripped it. That's not just reckless, it's criminal tampering. Laura nodded, her voice steady despite the exhaustion etching lines into her face. Meredith knew what it was. She called it an eyesore to my face. This wasn't a mistake. Priya leaned back, pinching the bridge of her nose. We're opening a case. Obstruction of emergency services. Potential theft of city property. Maybe even fraud if we dig into the HOA's towing contracts. Laura's mind flashed to the missing tablet, its absence a gnawing void. She'd spent the morning briefing her crew on heightened security protocols, her paranoia growing. What if the tablet's data was being misused? What if Meredith had allies in this? Priya's voice cut through her thoughts. We'll need a full report, timeline, damages, impact on the Maple Grove fire. Can you get that by tomorrow? Laura nodded. It's already drafted. Priya's lips twitched, almost a smile. You don't mess around, Chief. As Laura left the office, her phone buzzed with an email from the Willow Creek HOA. Subject: clarification on recent misunderstanding. Her stomach churned as she opened it. Meredith's tone was saccharine, dripping with false contrition. Dear residents, a clerical error led to the removal of a vehicle from Chief Delgado's property. We regret any inconvenience and are reviewing our processes to ensure compliance with community standards. Laura's fingers tightened around the phone. Clerical error. The lie was bold, but the email's real message was clear. Meredith was circling the wagons, painting Laura as the aggressor. The email ended with a veiled jab. We trust all residents will cooperate to maintain our neighborhood's harmony. Laura's mind drifted to a memory from her early days as a firefighter. 15 years ago, she'd been a probie, barely 25, assigned to a rural station where the chief dismissed her as too soft for the job. A warehouse fire had tested her, trapping her in a collapsing stairwell. She'd clawed her way out, dragging an unconscious colleague to safety. That night, she'd vowed never to let anyone undermine her ability to protect lives. Not a sexist chief, not a bureaucratic HOA. The memory steeled her. Meredith's email wasn't just a defense, it was a challenge. And Laura wasn't backing down. Back at the station, she found MIA Torres polishing an engine, her movements methodical but tense. MIA glanced up, her dark eyes wary. Heard about the HOA email. Chief, people are saying you're stirring trouble. Laura's chest tightened. The community's fear of Meredith was spreading, sowing doubt even among her crew. Let them talk, Laura said, forcing calm. Truth doesn't need rumors to win. MIA hesitated, then blurted, "I froze last night. If I'd been faster with the maps, maybe Carl wouldn't have." Laura cut her off, her voice firm but kind. "You did your job, MIA. Focus on that." MIA nodded, but her shoulders slumped, her self-doubt a mirror to Laura's own buried fears. That evening, Laura stood in her driveway, the empty space where the SUV belonged a glaring wound. Neighbors passed by, their glances a mix of curiosity and caution. Tim, the mechanic, stopped, his voice low. "Meredith's got half the street scared you'll sue the HOA and raise our dues. She's spreading lies." "Chief." Laura's jaw clenched. "She's scared because she's guilty." Tim nodded, but his eyes darted to his house, where his wife peeked from the window. Fear of Meredith's wrath ran deep, and Laura felt the weight of fighting alone. Her phone buzzed again, a text from an unknown number. "Check the HOA's financials. You're not the only one she's targeted." No name, no context, but the message sent a chill down her spine. Someone was watching, someone who knew more than they let on. Laura saved the text, her resolve sharpening. Meredith's email had drawn a line, but Laura was already steps ahead. She'd deliver Priya's report, then dig deeper. The HOA wasn't just a nuisance, it was a machine, and Meredith was its operator. Laura wasn't just fighting for her SUV. She was fighting for every neighbor too afraid to speak, every life her command vehicle was built to save. The fire was spreading, and she was ready to fan the flames. The Willow Creek Community Center hummed with tension as Laura Delgado entered the HOA meeting. Her dress uniform crisp, the gold braid on her shoulders catching the fluorescent lights. Her campaign hat was tucked under her arm, and in her hand was a folder thick with evidence, the tow receipt, photos of the damaged SUV, and a printout of Meredith Vance's email to the tow company, remove before neighborhood tour. The room was packed, neighbors crammed into folding chairs, their whispers buzzing like static. Meredith sat at the head table, her blonde bob immaculate, her smile a polished mask. But Laura saw the flicker in her eyes, fear, disguised as defiance. For 3 years, Meredith had ruled this room with an iron grip, fining residents for unapproved paint colors or, unsightly, garden tools. Tonight, Laura was here to break that grip. She took a seat in the front row, her presence drawing stares. Tim, the mechanic, gave her a nod from across the room, but others avoided her gaze. Their loyalty split between fear of Meredith and curiosity about Laura's stand. The meeting began with Meredith's usual flair, her voice syrupy as she welcomed everyone to our little family gathering. She glossed over the tow incident, calling it a minor oversight and promising enhanced communication moving forward. Laura's fingers tightened on her folder, her pulse steady but fierce. Meredith was rewriting history, and the room was buying it, until Laura stood. "Madam President," Laura said, her voice cutting through the murmurs like a siren. "I'm here to clarify what you call an oversight." The room stilled. Meredith's smile froze. Laura opened her folder, holding up the tow receipt. "This is your signature, authorizing the removal of my federally designated emergency command vehicle 2 days before a school fire. You called it a monstrosity in writing." She slid the email across the table, its words projected on a screen by a nervous board member. Gasps rippled through the crowd. A woman in the back whispered. She knew. Meredith's composure cracked, her voice rising. "This is outrageous. That vehicle violated our bylaws, and I acted to protect our community's image." Laura didn't flinch. "Your bylaws don't supersede state law, federal property clauses, or city emergency protocols. Your actions delayed our response to Maple Grove High, risking 1.200 lives." She paused, letting the weight settle. "You didn't just tow a vehicle. You endangered a school." The room was silent, the air heavy with shock. Meredith stammered, You're twisting this to slander me. But Laura pressed on, her voice like steel. I have photos of the damage, unplugged lights, a stolen tablet with sensitive data. This is a legal matter now. And I'll see you in court. The crowd erupted in murmurs. Tim clapped, a lone sound that sparked others. But not everyone was swayed. A neighbor, Karen Ellis, a Meredith loyalist, stood, her voice shrill. You're the one causing trouble. Chief, that SUV was an eyesore. And now you're threatening our dues with lawsuits. Laura's chest tightened. Karen had once baked her cookies when she moved in. But Meredith's influence ran deep. I'm not threatening, Laura said, meeting Karen's glare. I'm holding accountable a board that broke the law. Karen sat, but her words lingered, a reminder of the community's division. As Laura left, her boots echoing in the hallway, she felt the weight of betrayal. Karen's attack wasn't just personal, it was a symptom of Meredith's propaganda. Outside, Tim caught up, his voice low. Karen's scared of losing her house. Meredith's been threatening liens on anyone who speaks out. Laura nodded, her resolve hardening. Then we need more than words. We need proof. That night, her phone buzzed with another anonymous text. Look at the HOA's landscaping contracts. Follow the money. The message was unsigned, but it was a lifeline. Laura sat at her kitchen table, the green notice beside a cold coffee mug. Her mind racing. Meredith wasn't just a bully, she was a schemer. And Laura was closing in. The meeting had been a spark. But the real fire was yet to come. The fire station's bay was a hive of activity as Laura Delgado supervised the repair of her command SUV. Its light bar now reattached. Its antenna straightened. The missing tablet was a lingering wound. But City Techs had installed a temporary replacement, syncing it with backed-up data. Laura's hands were steady as she checked the radio relays. But her mind was elsewhere. The HOA meeting had shifted the tide. But Meredith's counterattack, a venomous email accusing Laura of slandering the board's good name, had lit a media firestorm. Channel 5's evening broadcast ran a segment titled HOA vs. Hero, Fire Chief's Truck Towed in Bizarre Dispute. Complete with a tow yard photo of the SUV. Its decals dulled by dust. Social media exploded, with hashtags like #SaveChiefDelgado trending alongside vitriolic comments calling Laura a drama queen. She stood in the station's break room, watching the news clip on a tablet, her jaw tight. MIA Torres lingered nearby, polishing a helmet with nervous energy. People are saying awful things online. Chief, MIA said, her voice small. They think you're making it up to get attention. Laura's chest ached, not for herself, but for MIA, who looked up to her like a beacon. Let them talk, Laura said, forcing a smile. Truth doesn't need likes to stand. MIA nodded, but her eyes betrayed doubt, a mirror to Laura's own buried fears. The station phone rang, and Jamal answered, his face darkening. Chief, it's a reporter, wants a follow-up, and we got hate mail. Someone called you a power-hungry wannabe cop. Laura's fingers curled into fists. The hate mail stung, but it was Meredith's doing, whipping up fear to deflect blame. She declined the reporter's interview, needing focus, not headlines. Instead, she met with Elena, the former HOA treasurer, at a diner across town. Elena slid a USB drive across the table, her hands trembling. This is everything, she whispered. Bank statements, invoices, emails. Meredith funneled $15 to Vance Landscaping, a shell company run by her cousin. No bids, no board approval. Laura's pulse quickened as she skimmed the files. One email stood out, Meredith to her cousin. Make sure the invoices look legit. We can't have questions before the tour. Fraud. Plain and simple. Laura's mind raced. The anonymous texts, follow the money, had led her here. But who was the whistleblower? Elena leaned forward, her voice low. There's more. Meredith blocked fire hydrants with decorative planters. Narrowed access roads for aesthetic flow. I tried to stop her, but she threatened to sue me for defamation. Laura's blood ran cold. These weren't just violations, they were deadly. A blocked hydrant could cost minutes in a fire, a narrowed road could trap an engine. She thanked Elena, pocketing the drive, her revolver blade sharpened by truth. Back at the station, MIA approached, her face determined. I want to help, Chief. I know I messed up at the school, but I can do more. Laura saw the spark in Mia's eyes. The need to prove herself. All right, Laura said. Help me catalog the SUV's damage for the legal case. Every scratch, every missing item. Mia's shoulders straightened. A small victory in her battle with self-doubt. As they worked, Laura's phone buzzed with a new email from Meredith. This one to the entire HOA board. Copied to Laura. Chief Delgado's reckless accusations threaten our community's stability. I propose a vote to censure her for misconduct. Laura's vision blurred with rage. Meredith wasn't just defending herself, she was trying to silence Laura. To turn the community against her. That night, Laura stood on her porch. Rusty snoring at her feet. The empty driveway felt like a challenge. Daring her to keep fighting. The media storm. The hate mail. Meredith's lies. They were all smoke. Meant to choke her resolve. But Laura had faced worse. Collapsing buildings. Toxic fumes. The weight of lives in her hands. She opened her laptop, uploading Elena's files to Priya Patel, the attorney, with a note. This is bigger than the toe. We've got fraud and fire code violations. The stars above were sharp, unyielding, like the truth she carried. Meredith thought she could bury Laura in rumors. But Laura was digging deeper. And the ground was about to give way. Laura Delgado's boots echoed in the fire station's bay as she reviewed Elena's files. Her eyes scanning invoices and emails that painted a damning picture of Meredith Vance's corruption. The $15 to Vance Landscaping was just the tip. There were payments for consulting to a non-existent firm. Inflated charges for a clubhouse repaint. And a $10 beautification fund that never materialized. Each document tightened the knot in Laura's chest. A mix of vindication and dread. Meredith wasn't just a petty tyrant, she was a thief. Siphoning HOA dues for personal gain. But the fire code violations Elena mentioned, blocked hydrants, narrowed roads, a locked evacuation gate, were worse. They weren't just illegal, they were lethal. A ticking bomb in a neighborhood of 300 homes. Laura's focus was broken by a klaxon blaring through the station. All units, 10 to 33 at 214 Oak Lane. Suspected gas leak. Residential. Evacuation in progress. Her heart lurched. Oak Lane was 5 blocks from her house. Deep in Willow Creek, she grabbed her handheld radio. The command SUV still under repair. And sprinted to a spare engine. Shouting, Torres, Carter, with me. MIA and Jamal piled in. Mia's face pale but determined. The ride was tense. The siren's wail doing little to drown out Laura's racing thoughts. Without the SUV's full setup, she'd be improvising again, relying on outdated maps and a patchy radio. The gas leak could turn catastrophic, a spark, a stove left on, and half the block could go up. They arrived to chaos, police cordoning off the street, residents in pajamas clutching pets, and a faint hiss of gas in the air. Laura set up a command post in the engine's cab, her handheld crackling as she coordinated. Jamal, get hazmat to the source. MIA, help PD with evacuation, check every house. MIA nodded, her earlier doubt replaced by focus. Laura's eyes scanned the street. Landing on a fire hydrant half hidden by a decorative rock wall, Meredith's beautification at work. Her jaw clenched. If they needed water, that wall would cost precious seconds. She radioed for a sledgehammer. Her voice sharp. We're not waiting for a wrecking crew. The leak was traced to a faulty gas line, contained before it ignited, but the hydrant issue lingered like a bad omen. Laura's report to the fire marshal included photos of the wall, tying it to Elena's files. Back at the station, she found her crew subdued. The gas leak a reminder of their vulnerability without the SUV. Jamal spoke up, his voice low. Chief, we trust you, but this HOA mess, it's wearing on us. People are saying you're picking a fight you can't win. Laura's chest ached. Her crew's faith was her anchor, and Meredith's lies were eroding it. I'm not fighting for me, she said. I'm fighting for every call we answer, every life we save. Jamal nodded, but the tension remained. That evening, Laura met Priya Patel at City Hall, handing over Elena's files. Priya's eyes widened as she skimmed the fraud evidence. This is a house of cards, Laura. We're adding financial misconduct to the case. But Priya's next words chilled her. Meredith's lawyer contacted us, claiming you've harassed her with baseless accusations. She's pushing for a restraining order. Laura's blood boiled. Harassment? She stole city property and endangered lives. Priya held up a hand. She's desperate. We'll counter, but you need to stay clean. No public outbursts. Laura nodded, but the accusation stung, a knife in her resolve. At home, Laura found a note slipped under her door. You're not alone. Check the HOA's hydrant permits. Unsigned, but it matched the anonymous texts. She sat at her kitchen table, Rusty's snores the only sound, and opened her laptop. The hydrant permits were public record, and within an hour, she found it. Meredith had bypassed city approval for the rock walls, violating fire codes. The evidence was mounting, but so was the pressure. Her crew's doubts, Meredith's legal threats, the community's division, they weighed on her like smoke in her lungs. Yet Laura's resolve burned brighter. She wasn't just fighting for her SUV or her pride. She was fighting for a system that protected lives. And no HOA queen was going to stop her. Laura Delgado stood in the fire station's bay, watching city techs recalibrate the command SUV's radio system. The vehicle was nearly restored, new tablet installed, light bar rewired, scratches buffed out, but the scars of its toe lingered in Laura's mind. The gas leak call had been a stark reminder of the stakes, a blocked hydrant, a delayed response, a community at risk. Elena's files and the anonymous tips had given her an arsenal of evidence. But Meredith Vance's latest move, a proposed HOA vote to censure Laura for disrupting community harmony, had escalated the war. The station's break room TV blared Channel 5's latest report. Fire chiefs battle with HOA sparks citywide debate. Laura muted it, her head pounding. The media frenzy was a double-edged sword, amplifying her cause but painting a target on her back. MIA Torres approached, clutching a clipboard with the SUV's repair log. Everything's catalogued, Chief, she said, her voice steadier than before. Laura saw the change in MIA, less hesitation, more purpose. Good work, Laura said, handing her a wrench. Help the techs with the antenna. You're part of this now. Mia's eyes lit up, a spark of confidence Laura hadn't seen since the academy. Their work was interrupted by Jamal, his face grim. Chief, we got another call from Meredith's lawyer. They're demanding you retract your slanderous claims or face a defamation suit. Laura's fingers tightened around the wrench. Let them sue. Truth's my defense. The day's tension peaked when Priya Patel called, her voice urgent. Laura, the fire marshal's preliminary review of Willow Creek found 14 code violations, blocked hydrants, locked gates, narrowed roads, all signed off by Meredith. We're escalating to a citywide audit of HOA compliance. Laura's pulse quickened. Her fight was no longer just personal, it was exposing systemic flaws. But Priya's next words were a gut punch. Meredith's rallying residents, claiming you're trying to bankrupt the HOA with legal fees. She's got a petition with 50 signatures. Laura's vision blurred with rage. 50 neighbors, people she'd waved to, shared coffee with, were turning against her, swayed by Meredith's lies. That evening, Laura drove to a community park. Needing air, she sat on a bench, rusty at her feet, and let her mind wander to a darker memory, her first year as chief. When a factory fire claimed 2 lives, she'd blamed herself, replaying every decision, every second lost. The guilt had nearly broken her. But she'd rebuilt herself, vowing never to let bureaucracy or ego cost another life. Meredith's actions echoed that old pain, threatening the system Laura had sworn to uphold. Her phone buzzed, a text from Tim. Meredith's holding a secret meeting tonight. Karen Ellis is pushing the petition. Be careful. Laura's jaw clenched. Karen's betrayal at the HOA meeting still stung. A reminder of how fear could twist loyalty. Laura returned home to find a crowd outside her house, neighbors. Some supportive, others hostile. Karen Ellis stood at the front, holding a clipboard. Laura, you're tearing this community apart, she shouted. Your lawsuits will ruin us. Laura stepped forward, her voice calm but unyielding. I'm not suing the HOA. I'm holding Meredith accountable for breaking the law. If you're worried about dues, ask her where $15 of your money went. The crowd murmured, Karen's face flushing. A supporter, an older woman named Rosa, spoke up. She fined me for my rosebushes. I'm with you, Chief. The crowd split, some nodding, others glaring. Laura felt the fracture, the weight of being both hero and villain. At the station, Laura drafted a press statement, approved by Priya, to counter Meredith's narrative. She stood before Channel 5's cameras. The SUV behind her, its decals gleaming. This vehicle saves lives, she said. Removing it without authorization wasn't a mistake, it was a choice. One that endangered our city. I'm fighting for accountability, not revenge. The clip aired, sparking more online support but also a flood of hate mail. Laura ignored it, focusing on the next step, the HOA's transparency meeting, where Meredith would face the community's growing unrest. She wasn't just fighting for her SUV anymore, she was fighting for a neighborhood waking up to the truth. And she wouldn't stop until the fire was out. The Willow Creek Community Center was a powder keg as Laura Delgado entered the HOA's transparency meeting. Her dress uniform a stark contrast to the casual attire of the packed crowd. The air buzzed with tension. Neighbors whispering about Channel 5's coverage and Meredith Vance's petition to censure Laura. Laura carried a briefcase stuffed with evidence, Elena's financial records, fire marshal reports, and photos of code violations, blocked hydrants, locked gates, narrowed roads. Meredith sat at the head table, her smile strained, her eyes darting to the crowd like a cornered animal. She'd called this meeting to restore trust, but Laura knew it was a last-ditch effort to cling to power. Meredith opened with a polished speech, her voice dripping with false humility. We've faced misunderstandings, but I assure you, the board is committed to unity. She glossed over the toe, blaming third-party errors and praising her own decisive leadership. Laura's fingers tightened on her briefcase, her pulse steady but fierce. The crowd was restless, some nodding, others scowling. Karen Ellis, Meredith's loyalist, stood, waving her petition. Chief Delgado's accusations are tearing us apart. We need stability, not lawsuits. The room murmured, but Laura saw cracks, neighbors exchanging skeptical glances. Tim shaking his head. Laura stood, her voice slicing through the noise. This isn't about stability, it's about accountability. She opened her briefcase, handing packets to the board. Meredith authorized $15 to a fake landscaping company run by her cousin. She blocked fire hydrants, locked evacuation routes, and towed my emergency vehicle, delaying a school fire response. She held up a photo of the SUV in the tow yard. Its light bar unplugged. This wasn't an error, it was deliberate. The crowd gasped, phones flashing as residents snapped pictures. Elena rose, her voice trembling but firm. I resigned because Meredith made illegal decisions without votes. I warned her about the SUV. She called it tacky and laughed. Meredith's face flushed crimson, her voice shrill. These are lies. I've devoted years to this community. But the board chair, a quiet man named Sanjay, raised a hand. We'll review these documents. Laura pressed on, her voice like a blade. Your actions violated state and federal law. They risked lives. I'm not here to argue. I'm here to ensure it never happens again. The room erupted, some cheering, others shouting. Karen Ellis stormed out, her petition forgotten. Meredith tried to regain control, but her words drowned in the chaos. As the meeting adjourned, residents swarmed Laura, their stories spilling out. Rosa, the Rosebush-find neighbor, hugged her. She banned my grandson's skateboard ramp. Thank you for standing up. A man named Greg admitted. She fined me for my truck's oil stain. I was too scared to fight. The grievances were a flood. Meredith's tyranny laid bare, but Meredith's parting shot hit hard. As Laura left, Meredith hissed, "You think you're a hero? I know about your factory fire. Laura, people died because you weren't good enough." The words cut deep, striking at Laura's old guilt, the 15-year-old wound of the factory fire where she'd lost 2 civilians. She froze, her breath shallow, but forced herself to walk away, her boots steady. At home, Laura sat in the dark, Rusty's warmth grounding her. Meredith's taunt had unearthed her deepest fear, that she wasn't enough. That her fight was fueled by ego, not duty. She opened her laptop, rereading Elena's files, grounding herself in facts. The anonymous texter struck again. Check Meredith's emails to the board. She's hiding more. Laura's resolve reignited. Meredith had aimed for her heart, but she'd missed. The community was waking up, and Laura was their voice. The meeting had been a turning point, but the real battle, legal, personal, communal, was just beginning. She wasn't fighting for redemption. She was fighting for the truth, and she'd burn through every obstacle to get it. The command SUV gleamed in the fire station's bay. Fully restored, tablet reinstalled, radios recalibrated, decals polished to a mirror shine. Laura Delgado ran her hand along its hood, the cool metal a testament to her persistence. The repairs were complete, but the fight was far from over. Meredith Vance's taunt at the transparency meeting, "People died because you weren't good enough," had left a bruise on Laura's psyche, stirring memories of the factory fire that haunted her. She'd pushed through, but the wound was raw, her confidence shaken. The station buzzed with quiet support, her crew sensing her strain. MIA Torres, now a fixture at Laura's side, handed her a coffee. "Suv looks ready to roll." "Chief," MIA said, her voice warm. Laura nodded, grateful for Mia's growth, a bright spot in the storm. Laura requested a private meeting with Meredith. Not as a chief, but as a resident. She needed to face the woman who'd weaponized her past. They met in the HOA office, a sterile room with Meredith's framed awards on the walls. Meredith arrived in a pastel blazer, her smile brittle, her eyes wary. "I'm glad we can be civil," she began, her voice forced. "This has been blown out of proportion." Laura slid a folder across the desk, photos of blocked hydrants, fraudulent invoices, the tow yard SUV. "You knew what you were doing," Laura said, her voice low, unyielding. "You risked lives for a neighborhood tour. You stole from residents, and you dug up my past to hurt me." Meredith's composure cracked, her hands trembling. "I didn't know about the SUV's role," she stammered. "And your past? It's public record. Laura leaned forward, her gaze piercing. You called it tacky in emails. You bragged about the tow. You endangered a school. And my past. It's why I fight for every second. Every life. Her voice shook, not with anger, but with conviction. Explain how $15 to your cousin's fake company helps anyone. Explain how locking evacuation gates protects residents. Meredith's silence was deafening, her eyes dropping to the folder. For the first time, she had no defense, no smug retort. Laura stood. The audit team arrives tomorrow. Prepare yourself. She left, the door clicking shut like a gavel. Back at the station, Laura found a surprise, a wooden sign by the SUV's parking spot. Hand-painted by her crew. Reserved for Chief Delgado. Tow at your peril. Jamal grinned. Figured we'd make it official. Laura laughed, the sound easing the knot in her chest. But the victory was bittersweet. Priya Patel called with an update. The audit had uncovered $80 in misappropriated HOA funds. And the fire marshal's citywide review found 37 violations across other HOAs. Laura's case was sparking reform. But Meredith's lawyer was pushing back, claiming the audit was biased and threatening countersuits. The legal battle loomed, and Laura felt the weight of being the spearhead. That night, she sat on her porch, Rusty snoring beside her. The anonymous texter struck again. Meredith's planning a comeback. Watch the board elections. Laura's jaw clenched. Meredith's silence in their meeting wasn't surrender, it was strategy. She opened her laptop, drafting a fire safety seminar for the community. Determined to rebuild trust, MIA joined her, bringing a sketch of the SUV she'd drawn. Labeled Chief's Hero Truck. Thought you'd like it, MIA said, shy but proud. Laura's eyes softened. It's perfect, MIA. You're tougher than you know. The moment grounded her, a reminder of why she fought, not for glory, but for people like MIA. Like Carl, like the neighbors waking up to Meredith's lies. The SUV was back. But the real restoration was the community's spirit. And Laura was its keeper. The audit team descended on Willow Creek's HOA office like a surgical strike. Their laptops and file boxes filling the conference room. Laura Delgado watched from a distance, her role as witness keeping her on the sidelines. The findings were staggering: $80 in misappropriated funds, including $20 to Vance Landscaping, $15 for a non-existent consulting firm, and $45 in inflated contracts for projects never completed. Meredith Vance's house of cards was collapsing, but she'd vanished. Her leave of absence, announced via a curt email citing personal stress. Her house, once a showcase of flower baskets and pristine hedges, now had yellowing grass and a tipped-over recycling bin. Untouched for days, rumors swirled, she was plotting a comeback, rallying loyalists for the upcoming board elections. Laura stood in the fire station, briefing her crew on the audit. Jamal's face was grim. She's gone quiet, Chief. That's not good. Laura nodded, her mind on the anonymous text. Watch the board elections. Meredith's silence was tactical, a snake coiling to strike. Priya Patel called, her voice clipped. We're filing charges: fraud, obstruction, municipal code violations. You'll need to testify. Laura's stomach tightened. Testifying meant reliving the tow. The school fire. Meredith's taunt about the factory fire. But she agreed, her resolve unshaken. I'm ready, she said, though doubt lingered, a shadow of her old guilt. The community was fracturing. Karen Ellis, Meredith's former ally, had withdrawn her petition, but others clung to Meredith's narrative, fearing legal costs. Rosa, the Rosebush neighbor, organized a support group for Laura, hosting coffee meetings to share HOA grievances. At one, Laura spoke, her voice steady. This isn't about revenge. It's about safety, about ensuring no one delays a fire response again. The group applauded, But Laura saw wary faces. Neighbors still scared of Meredith's influence. Tim approached, his voice low. Heard Meredith's cousin is running for the board. She's pulling strings from the shadows. Laura's jaw clenched. The fight wasn't over. Laura's new role as emergency services liaison began. A position created by the interim board led by Elena. She hosted a fire safety seminar in the community center, teaching residents about hydrant access and evacuation plans. MIA assisted, her confidence growing as she demonstrated a fire extinguisher. "You're a natural," Laura told her, pride softening her strain. The seminar drew a crowd, including the mayor, who shook Laura's hand. "You've started something big, Chief. The city's watching." Laura nodded, but the weight of leadership pressed harder. She wasn't just a chief, she was a symbol. And symbols couldn't falter. At home, Laura found a note taped to her door: "You're not alone. Keep going," unsigned, but it matched the anonymous texts. She sat at her kitchen table, Rusty's snores grounding her, and reviewed the audit's public summary. The violations were damning, but Meredith's absence worried her. Was she fleeing justice or planning a counterattack? Laura's phone buzzed. A text from Priya. "Meredith's lawyer wants a plea deal. Testify strong." And she's done. Laura's resolve hardened. The trial loomed. A chance to end Meredith's reign. But the anonymous warnings echoed. Meredith wasn't finished. Laura wasn't fighting one woman, she was fighting a system that let petty tyrants thrive. The seminar, the liaison role, the community's support, they were steps toward change. But the real victory lay in the courtroom, where truth would burn brightest. The courthouse hummed with quiet tension as Laura Delgado walked through its glass doors. Her dress uniform pressed, her boots polished to a mirror shine. She wasn't here for a ceremony or a commendation, she was here to testify. The state had filed charges against Meredith Vance, obstruction of emergency services, fraud, and multiple municipal code violations. The courtroom was half full, with reporters in the back, Willow Creek residents scattered among the benches, and a few of Meredith's loyalists, including Karen Ellis, sitting with crossed arms. Laura took her seat, her briefcase heavy with evidence, her mind steeling for the fight. Meredith's taunt about the factory fire lingered, but Laura pushed it down, focusing on the lives she'd saved, the truth she carried. The bailiff called her name, and Laura strode to the stand, swearing the oath with a steady hand. The prosecutor, a sharp woman named Carla Ruiz, began. Chief Delgado, describe the impact of the tow on the Maple Grove fire response. Laura's voice was clear, unyielding. My command SUV is a mobile operations center, radios, schematics, medical kits. Its removal delayed our coordination, forcing us to rely on spotty handhelds and outdated maps. A janitor nearly died, and a firefighter was injured. She detailed the tow yard damage, the unplugged light bar, the stolen tablet, her words measured but heavy. The jury leaned forward, their faces grim. Carla played the school fire's dispatch audio, the static and shouts filling the room. Laura described the chaos, her voice catching as she mentioned Carl's gray face. Seconds matter, she said. In our world, seconds are the line between rescue and recovery. The prosecutor showed photos of the SUV. Then Meredith's email. Remove that monstrosity. The crowd murmured. Meredith sat at the defense table, her eyes fixed on her hands, her once flawless poise shattered. Her lawyer argued the tow was a procedural error, claiming Meredith didn't know the SUV's role. Carla countered with the email, proving intent. The jury's faces hardened. Laura stepped down, her testimony a cornerstone of the case. The trial lasted 3 days, with Elena testifying about the fraud and the fire marshal detailing the code violations. Meredith took the stand, her voice trembling as she claimed ignorance. But her lies unraveled under cross-examination. The jury deliberated for 6 hours, Returning with a verdict, guilty on all counts. Meredith was fined $50, barred from HOA leadership for 15 years, and ordered to pay restitution to the fire department. Her public apology, read on Channel 5, was a shadow of her former swagger, her voice breaking as she spoke. Back in Willow Creek, the verdict rippled through the neighborhood. Elena's board posted a notice thanking residents for their patience and promising transparency. Laura's liaison role grew, with monthly safety reviews drawing crowds. But a cryptic note arrived at her home: "You won. But I'm not done." Unsigned. But Meredith's handwriting was unmistakable. Laura's jaw clenched. Meredith's conviction was a victory. But her bitterness was a lingering threat. The community barbecue, hosted by the fire station, was a celebration of unity. Kids climbed on engines. Rosa grilled burgers, and the SUV's new decal, "In service to all," gleamed. MIA led a kids' fire drill, her confidence soaring. Laura watched, pride easing her strain, but the note weighed heavy. The fire was out, but embers remained. The Willow Creek barbecue was in full swing. The fire station lot alive with laughter and the sizzle of grills. Kids darted through a mini obstacle course, wielding toy hoses, while parents snapped photos of Laura Delgado's Command SUV. Its "In service to all" decal a badge of victory. Laura stood near the engine bay, shaking hands with the mayor, who'd arrived to praise her game-changing leadership. Her dress uniform was swapped for a station T-shirt, but her badge still gleamed, a quiet reminder of her role. MIA Torres led a group of kids in a fire safety game, her voice confident, a far cry from the shaky rookie at Maple Grove. Laura watched, pride swelling, but Meredith Vance's note, "You won. But I'm not done," sat in her pocket, a shadow on the celebration. The fire marshal's citywide HOA audit, sparked by Laura's case, was yielding results. Across the city, 47 violations were uncovered: blocked hydrants, illegal gates, even a fake fire lane painted to dodge inspections. Laura was named to a task force to draft new regulations. Her evenings now split between station duties and policy meetings. Priya Patel, the attorney, called with an update: "Your testimony broke the dam." Laura, "The state's pushing for mandatory HOA oversight. You're a catalyst." Laura nodded, but the weight of being a catalyst pressed hard. She wasn't a politician, she was a firefighter. And the spotlight felt like a spotlight on a stage she hadn't chosen. Back in Willow Creek, Elena's board was rebuilding trust. The banned rosebushes returned, kids' chalk art bloomed on sidewalks, and a new rule required board votes for all contracts. But Meredith's absence was eerie. Her house remained dark, her cousin's board candidacy withdrawn after the fraud charges. Tim, the mechanic, approached Laura at the barbecue, his voice low. Heard Meredith's been meeting with lawyers out of town. Might be planning a civil suit against the city. Laura's jaw clenched. A lawsuit would drag on, draining resources and sowing doubt. She thanked Tim, her mind racing. Meredith's note wasn't a bluff, it was a promise. Laura's liaison role expanded, with weekly safety drills drawing neighbors like Rosa and Greg, who'd once feared Meredith's fines. At one drill, a girl in a homemade fire hat ran up, handing Laura a drawing of the SUV labeled Chief's Hero truck. Her dad whispered, "She saw you on TV. Calls you the lady who stopped the bad queen." Laura knelt, her voice soft. "This is my favorite art yet." The moment grounded her, but the anonymous texter struck again. Meredith's funding a proxy candidate. Check the new board filings. Laura's pulse quickened. She accessed the filings online, finding a name she didn't recognize, linked to a law firm tied to Meredith's cousin. The snake was slithering back. That night, Laura sat on her porch, Rusty snoring, the SUV parked under its new plaque, emergency vehicle. Protected by law, the barbecue's laughter lingered, But so did Meredith's threat. Laura wasn't fighting one woman anymore, she was fighting a mindset. A system that let petty power thrive. The task force, the drills, the community's trust, they were her weapons. But the war wasn't won. She drafted an email to Priya, flagging the proxy candidate, and prepared for the next board election. Meredith thought she could outlast her. But Laura was fire, relentless, unyielding, and ready to burn through any shadow. The Willow Creek neighborhood glowed under a summer sunset. Porch lights flickering on as kids biked down sidewalks, their laughter mingling with the hum of evening barbecues. Laura Delgado stood on her porch, Rusty dozing at her feet, her eyes on the command SUV parked under its city-installed plaque, emergency vehicle. Protected by law, the HOA election had cemented Elena's board. Meredith Vance's proxy candidate defeated, her influence shattered by the ethics probe. The citywide HOA reforms, driven by Laura's task force, were law now: hydrant audits, mandatory safety training, transparent budgets. Willow Creek was a model, its scars healing under Elena's calm leadership. Laura's liaison role had grown, with monthly seminars packed with residents eager to learn. Mia Torres, now a rising star, co-led the sessions, her self-doubt replaced by quiet strength. At the latest seminar, a girl in a fire hat gave Laura a clay model of the SUV. Inscribed Chief's Hero, Laura displayed it on her desk, a reminder of the community's trust. But Meredith's final note, "I'm not done," still haunted her. Rumors persisted. Meredith had moved to a nearby town, whispering to new allies, plotting a return. Laura stayed vigilant, her anonymous texter silent but her instincts sharp. The station hosted a community day, the lot filled with music, food, and fire truck tours. Rosa grilled tacos, Tim led a kids' hose demo, and the mayor unveiled a city proclamation naming Laura Fire Safety Advocate of the Year. She accepted, her voice steady. "This isn't about me. It's about a community that said enough to fear and chose trust." The crowd cheered, Mia beaming at her side. Later, a boy asked, "Chief, did you really beat the bad lady?" Laura knelt, smiling. "We all did, together." His grin was her true award. At home, Laura sat at her kitchen table, reviewing task force reports. The reforms were saving lives. A hydrant audit in another city had caught a blockage before a fire. Her fight had rippled outward. But so had her peace. The factory fire's guilt, stirred by Meredith's taunt, had faded, replaced by pride in her crew, her neighbors, herself. A final anonymous text arrived. "You changed everything. Thank you." Laura suspected Rosa, but it didn't matter. The sender was Willow Creek itself. The SUV gleamed in the driveway, a symbol of service unbroken. Meredith's shadow was gone, her power burned away by truth. The story of the towed truck was now legend, firehouse banter. Backyard Tales, a cautionary epic of a chief who fought fire with fire and won with community. Laura leaned back, eyes on the stars. No sirens, no chaos, just a neighborhood at peace. And a woman who'd learned that leadership wasn't about fighting alone, but lighting the way for others to follow.